Mona Leaves is a pretty interesting episode of The Simpsons. It got off to a great start, and then it was a little bit dull, and then ultimately it was really enjoyable. It's also dedicated to two people, which gives it a much deeper meaning, and I'll mention who those people are in a moment. But I will say this discussion will contain spoilers for something that happens to a character in The Simpsons. As you can imagine, it's Mona. And I will say, I didn't expect this. I didn't see this coming. So, just in case you don't know what happens and maybe don't want to know, there will be spoilers from this point onwards. This is the 19th episode of the 19th season of The Simpsons, and of course, we have the return of Mona, voiced by Glenn Close. Mona, of course, being Homer's mother. And before we get to that, it starts off with a parody of Build-A-Bear Workshop. And I used to work at Build-A-Bear a long time ago, over a decade ago. And honestly, the design of it was perfect, with Ralph filling up his bear with the stuffing machine. It amused me so much. So I thought that was a really strong start and something that really entertained me. When we had the return of Mona, I wasn't that bothered. I don't really like her. I really don't like her as a character that much. But that being said, I didn't want what happened to her to happen. And I guess this is where the big spoiler comes in, because in this episode, Mona leaves insofar as she dies. A tiny part of me is not 100% convinced she's dead, even though she clearly is. But there's just something about this character that I do not trust. But she clearly is. And she leaves a video will, and I thought it was a pretty great idea to end the video will with some funny animal clips. Funny cat videos will make me laugh no matter what mood I'm in. And I just feel like having funny animal videos at the end of a really depressing video is actually a pretty smart idea. And she leaves her ashes to Homer. And it's more than just a case of spreading the ashes somewhere. There's a lot more to it. I won't say any more than that. I know I've given a spoiler warning, but I won't go into any more detail. But yeah, I mean, it was fine. It got a little bit boring. Basically, from the point of the video will until I think the last time we see Mr. Burns. I feel like that chunk was just not that interesting and not engaging. But after that, it was quite moving. It's a fine episode. I didn't love it, but there were bits that I did really like. We also get a little look at Homer and grief and how he has responded to this. There's also a message in here about being nice to your loved ones, because you never know when the last time is going to be that last time. And I think it delivers that message really effectively. There's a great bit with Lenny and Carl that I rather liked, and I found the way that the gifts in the will all kind of came together really great as well. So definitely a well written episode. As I said, there's a chunk that I just found to be quite boring, but generally it's not too bad. And the mentions at the end, the episode is dedicated to Ellie Castellaneta and Dora K. Warren. And Ellie Castellaneta, I kind of assumed was Dan Castellaneta's mother. It is. Dora K. Warren is actually the mother of Harry Shearer, and they both passed away within, according to the internet, within about a month of each other. So it makes sense that two of the main voice actors for The Simpsons, having both just lost their mothers, it makes sense to then touch on this subject in an episode. And I feel like they could have done more about the grief angle, but then it would have been quite depressing. So I think they got the balance quite right. But I can see this being part of the the grieving process and fueling that emotion into their work. And I feel like that would be a really healthy thing to do, and a really beneficial thing for both of them to do. So I can completely see why this existed. It's got a quick turnaround. According to IMDb, this episode was first aired in May 2008, and their mothers passed away in January and February, so it's a pretty quick turnaround. But yeah, it just kind of gave it an extra layer, made it a little bit more emotional and a little bit more important. And I think it does have some important messages about being there with your loved ones and taking the time to make sure the last thing you say to them is as nice as can be, because you never know when the last time you see them will be the last time. It's a good episode. There are bits I didn't particularly care for, but ultimately I think it was well structured and definitely one I wouldn't mind watching again.